All right. Wow. 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 I'm so excited today. I have two of the most incredible cannabis people on the line. We got Mr. Happy and we got Kay on the line. And Mr. Happy and Kay are from, we won't say the state, but let's just say they provided some of the most incredible strains that I've ever even got my hands on. And they're super knowledgeable. They are real old school cats that actually got history, that even their dad, it goes down the family line with these old school stuff, the old school strains and so forth. So there's a lot here that we're going to talk about today. The main two subjects that we're going to talk about is skunk and the OG line history. There's been a lot of confusion when it comes to OG. What is OG? Where did it come from? What do you consider an OG? An OG, is cherry OG really an OG, or what is OG supposed to taste like? What's the history behind it? So, hey, Mr. Happy and Kay actually, they got history with this stuff. They know they actually know what they're talking about. So when we get into some stuff right now, just listen in, guys, because we're about to get really deep and it's going to be pretty amazing. So for all the listeners out there, this is Real Cannabis Talk coming at you, a new episode, and this is now the new edition, the new old school chronic chronicle edition, and we're going to talk histories and facts. We're not going to be here talking crap like I hate to say it, like Blue Sky did it, but so it's going to be a little different vibration. It's going to be all about facts, knowledge, and just good old fashioned cannabis talk. So with that, guys, um, Mr. Happy and Kay, welcome to the show.
What's good, brother?
Man, it's great to be here, man. I appreciate it, for real.
Oh my God, I'm more than honored to have you guys as friends. And honestly, I'm so stoked that you made the time to do this with me today. This is going to be people are going to be tripping after this. They're going to be like, oh shit, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know. You know what I mean? So whoever wants to start it up, Mr. Happy, okay, we could talk a little bit about, why don't we talk about,
The first thing that I'd like to address, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to have Kay on here, because this is something that me and him had talked about, following some conversations about skunk, and we pretty much had the exact same mindset on it. And I've been seeing some of what I would consider to be respectable and knowledgeable breeders and growers on IG saying the same thing. And I'm getting a little frustrated with the conversation. I know Kay, he's a lot calmer than I am, so he's probably not going to express as much frustration, but I'm sure he has it. So I'm gonna start off the conversation, and then I'm gonna let Kay say what he's got to say, just because I'll say out of the two of us, and this is just my perspective, he's definitely the skunk specialist, and I'm definitely the OG specialist. So I'm gonna make this comment, and then Kay, I'm gonna hand off the microphone to you.
All right.
So there's a whole lot of argument and debating and going back and forth nonsense on this whole topic of skunk, and specifically the RKS phenotype of the skunk. And it's nonsense and it's pointless, because the thing that people need to understand is, does skunk exist as a strain? Yeah, it does. But is skunk, and more specifically, is RKS skunk, some legendary hybrid that can't be found? Absolutely not. Skunk, first and foremost, is a phenotype or a particular terpene profile that can be found in just about anything. Tannin has been found. It's been found in sour diesel. It's been found in certain phenotypes of OG Kush. It's been found in certain phenotypes of haze, cheese, you name it. It's not some mystical thing. It's a terpene profile, and specifically the RKS has been found in sour diesel. It's been found in a very few particular phenos of OG, and it's been found in some of your land race cushes like Aki, Afghan. It's out there. It's not nothing special, but it's also not guaranteed. It's not something that any breeder can guarantee you that every seed you're going to pop is going to produce that terpene profile. And if they tell you any different, they're getting one over on you. Or is yours?
Now, I'm going to tell you this, and only because it's from experience and not my experience, but I've seen it with my own two eyes. My dad, I ain't going. He's an old time breeder, and when he started breeding out, these guys were in the hills making moonshine. This is no joke. That's why my dad. Well, it's first off, let's say the guy that he got the seeds off of, he was a moonshiner. That's what he did for a living. He made moonshine, and the cops come in and busted his still up, took all his shit. So he literally went to growing, because that was a lot more safer. He didn't have to haul all this metal and shit around and make big stills. So he went to growing. Well, and this guy happened to be family. This guy happened to be family, old cat. And him and my dad were real close. Like, he'd give his life for him, if y'all know what I mean. So I'm like a third, fourth generation grower. And when my dad, it's like when he took those seeds, man, it wasn't nothing special. Wasn't nothing big. The dude he got them off of was growing this shit outdoors and letting it dry in a cave. He was letting this shit dry, and it would dry dark brown. All right, this shit would dry dark brown, and it would fucking waste you out. And there was no putting it in jars. There was no hanging it in a humidity room. There was no getting it at. He would literally cut it, hang it in a cave, let it dry, and bring his shit. And I'm telling you what, it was so good, it would wipe you out, right? And it smelled just like a skunk's ass. So that's where. And now there were skunks around. I get this, but the moonshine and the skunk. So my dad started calling it Blue Moonshine because the guy's name was Blue Moonshine. So that's where our skunk come from. And then it was just like.
Real quick, I want to just say this real quick while you're on the story. Hey, for everyone who's listening, the seeds that I did my pheno hunt with on the skunk hunt that I said smelt the closest to what I believe the roadkill skunk was from K. Okay, so K, again, we don't have to mention it on the line here on what state he's from, but obviously everybody knows, what I'm calling it. You know what I mean? And so
I'll tell you right now, it's from Kentucky. I mean, the skunk that we grew. I mean, not and now the red hair skunk, I grew it. Whatever Culvertown, they can call it whatever they want. I don't really care, but I know this, because this is facts, because I've seen it and I've smoked it and I've touched it. That skunk 1, skunk 2, blue, whatever you want to call it, it was like hitting a skunk with your car and not stopping. You getting one big whiff, pow, and it just swiping you down, and then all of a sudden it would leave, set your jar, and come back. That's how that skunk worked. I'm telling you, that's how strong it was. You could open your jar up, and it would hit you in the face. And this was like not even 4 or 5 days into the cure. And I'm talking about if you cured it right, the more skunkier it would come. It was just ripe. And that was what we sent you. But the seeds were not special. It was just like, my dad opened his vault up, and it never does because he's an OG prick. He don't give shit away. And for me to get even 10 seeds off him was like pulling a tooth. So, I mean, that's real talk.
Damn, really? Like that? So I just wanted to say, these seeds that I called the 1996 Kentucky line, they were not from Kentucky Organics V2 or whatever his name is right now. These were from K. So,
they did come, but now listen. Now, see, he lived in Springfield for a little bit. We lived in Springfield for a little bit. So, he picked up some seeds out of Springfield, Kentucky, which is not 5 minutes out of Raywick. And I'm not saying, that's where the Boone and Bickett hemp farm is out through there. That place is loaded with the best genetics ever. That's why I'm Kentucky Organics V2. I guarantee you he's got some fire. I guarantee he does. Because if he's from that area that he says he's from, then I guarantee he's got fire. Because that's all they grow out there.
100%. Listen, his gear is amazing. Unfortunately, I'm just not a fan of the person, right? So if you guys all wanted to go directly to him, feel free to. Or you can go to me, and I'm producing worked lines of it right now. And so And I'm working these lines because they did have a couple issues. I did the one thing that I really loved from him, to be honest with you, was the Christmas skunk, which technically wasn't even from him. It was a 1979 Christmas skunk, which is from HSO, and then he crossed it to the Culver Town skunk. And then honestly, that really was an incredible strain. Unfortunately, it had a couple Hermy issues, and I'm stabilizing it right now. But the red hair skunk did have a skunk smell, and it was,
Yeah.
as we say, a Culver Town times Burmese times Afghan, and
Yeah.
and now Kay, the 1996 skunk that you gave me from those seeds, you also told me that it was from Culver Town, a Culver Town skunk, not crossed to the Burmese or anything like that, or the Afghan, but it was Culver Town times to Blue Moonshine skunk.
Yeah.
And,
Yes, that's pretty much what.
and Jr., you're just to clarify, you already have crossed those two together, right?
I have now crossed both of those together. Yes, the male I
Okay.
got from the red hair skunk, I crossed back into, because the loudest one, to be honest with you, was yours, Kay. It was
Yeah.
the loudest one. It was the frostiest one. It was frostier than the red hair skunk itself.
Was it any good though? Did you smoke it? Because I don't like. I mean, but to be honest with you, I'd never really liked that type of smoke because it would wipe me out, and I didn't really. I mean, I like the function. So, did you like it?
You know what? At this point right now, I had an issue with my garden at the very end because some things. So I didn't get the chance to truly smoke it yet. And now, but the smells that were coming off of it, it was just exactly what I expected to
Yeah.
smell.
Well, here's why I'm excited, and here's what I remember. This is kind of like a trip down memory lane to me on both accounts. Part of it I've addressed with you before, Jr. I believe on the podcast. So for me, what I remember to be the closest representation to a true RKS that I've ever seen was skunk that had been crossed with either or. It was two varieties, but they were basically the same. It was just one was a little bit girthier and bulkier than the other. It was skunk crossed with Afghani, and then it was skunk crossed with hash queen. And it was something about crossing that skunk with that Afghan or that hash plant that just gave it that little extra oomph. It just took it nuclear on the smell factor, and it also laid your ass the fuck out. And so I remember that. But then also, and the last time me and Kay were talking about it, again, trip down fucking memory lane, because I have no problem saying, I'm not going to say where I'm at, but I have no problem saying where I'm from. I'm originally from Indiana. I grew up, born and raised in Indiana. And anybody who knows their maps knows Indiana's right on the border of Kentucky. So I remember a moonshine skunk. And I remember smoking the moonshine skunk. And I remember that shit was loud as fuck. And I remember that it had a very, very unique effect that when you smoked it on the inhale and the exhale, especially on the exhale, your fucking mouth would tingle.
Yeah.
Like
That's
your
why.
mouth and your
Yeah.
lips would fucking tingle, dude. It was almost like in the movies when you see when somebody takes and they dip their finger in Coke and they rub the Coke and they're like, my lips are going numb. It wasn't that intense, but it was definitely fucking noticeable.
That's why I
And
didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It made my nose tingle. I don't like that shit. Make me in the couch. I
right,
don't
and
like
so to see those two fucking cross together, dude, I can't wait to see what's gonna come out
Yeah.
of that.
Oh, bro, I already know. Go ahead.
People that like the couch lock, that's what they would. That's what they will want. They will want that right there because that'll put them in the couch. I promise you.
And that's another thing too, man. Again, we already addressed the fact that RKS and skunk in general, but especially RKS, that terp profile, the actual terp profile, which is what people seem to be looking for, that can come out of fucking anything. It doesn't have to come out of the actual skunk strain, but for the skunk strain itself, for me, from what I remember and what I would want to look for, RKS skunk should be indica dominant. It should not be sativa dominant.
100%.
I mean, from what I smell,
Go ahead, Kay.
but like you was just saying right there, I ain't saying for the red hair skunk or the RKS or none of that, but now like for that one for the blue moonshine skunk, when it was so ripe, like you said, it was just like you couldn't. 3 or 4 days in the jar, man. And I'll tell you what, but I want to say something about that profile real quick. Okay, I had an OG 18 from DNA. I popped over 300 seeds last year, and end up popping her at the end of the season, or I think it was around about July, and she come out and she had them big long Kush papaya leaves, and I'm telling you what, she had the skunkiest smell. I put her in a jar and I put her in the trunk, and my wife still could smell it. That's how strong it was. So that profile can carry into a lot of genetics. It just and it's also how you grow it too. A lot of people want to use salts. Now I'm a salt man myself when I do outside. So I hit it, and I hit it hard, and it will come out ripe and smelling strong. But now if I just grow it straight organically, I'm not that good at it. I don't really I don't jive with the organics that good. But now you give me some 10 10 10 and watch out. I'm a salt man, and that's just how it is. I can't help it. It's just you can say what you want. I like to grow organically inside, but now when I do it outside, it's all salt. And then I'm telling you, I get that smell every time. I take it inside, I can't get it. I don't get it.
I want to address one quick thing. So far, when you gave me those seeds, they were so rare. My mentality behind it was to create more seeds and to cross it, because I wanted to not make sure I don't lose the lineage. And then I started smelling the smells and realizing what was here. And I've smelled thousands of plants. Now, I hadn't had a chance to smoke it yet because I'm still obviously, one, I had a small issue with the garden. Two, then I decided to seed everything, because in that particular time I seeded everything mainly because I wanted to preserve the strain. And then I'm still in the middle of testing everything, guys. So just know these aren't going to be released for probably another 6 months, because one, I have to smoke it before I release it and qualify it as the technical skunk.
Exactly right. That's
but
right.
And I need other people to qualify it without me telling them what it is. I want them to tell me what it is. And that is when I start releasing things and start qualifying things as what they are. But I could tell you, because my nose is so fine tuned to different smells, and I've smelled every damn strain on the planet almost, there's a very, very few times where all of a sudden I smell something so loud that is very distinct and is very different than anything else I've ever smelled. And it totally was like, oh, fuck. So this is what people were fucking talking about when they call, I guess what they refer to as roadkill skunk, because it was so frosty and so loud and so nasty compared to everything else in the garden. Really, it was the first one to be like, oh, what the fuck is that? And then it had the body that I was looking for too, the frosty factor of the 1990s kind of weed. It wasn't just some landrace shit that doesn't look good or doesn't frost up or doesn't have that fucking genetic profile. It was actual like frosty ass fucking weed. So all these things now started to, I realized I had something, and it was very special. And I still at this point, first I already knew it was skunk because the skunk profile was there, the smell. Now the next test that I go into is I go into my hydroponic garden, I do an organic test, and I'm going to do a greenhouse test. Plus, I'm going to hand it to a couple of my testers. I'm going to have them running it. And then from there, we're all going to make our own judgment on what it is. And then from there, the seeds will start to come out, and we'll get them in the market so that other people can experience this, because this is the kind of stuff, Kay, that honestly I haven't seen ever. And I'm just blessed that you blessed us, bro. And honestly, I'm thank your dad for us, because for him to go into his archives, pull out this kind of stuff from 1996 and 1998, because I got both those seeds, was really a blessing. And especially coming from the Kentucky original Culvertown, Springfield areas where the real skunks were grown by moonshiners. I mean, give me a break, dude. That's like fucking genetic history. And
You gotta, you do have to get the old, but now it is like that. You said, oh, you got to find the old timers. That's what I said. Because you can't get that's why. If I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this: if this state ever goes legal, I promise you, you will see some of the best genetics to ever hit these streets of the United States.
Oh yeah, between them and Tennessee, it would be a fucking wrap. Like folks be sleeping on
No one
Tennessee
talks about it.
too.
Yeah, forget about it. For real, forget about it. I promise you, some of these old
That
that
fucking hog's breath, bro. That hog's breath I ain't seen that shit since the early '90s, bro. Let
They don't want
Kentucky and
to off
Tennessee
them,
go
bro.
lose. It's a wrap.
It's like pulling teeth with them for real. They just, I mean, they're and the longer they sit on them, it's like I told him, I was like, you sit on them, you're going to let them destroy it. You can't. It's not gold. Somebody I heard some dude, I think it was James Loud, was trying to compare seeds to gold. Or something. And I was like, what? No, 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 no. Seeds, they age. I mean, when they get old, they're harder to pop, from my experience. All right, so you need, and it takes people like Jr. No, I don't breed. I'm a grower. That's all I do. I try to breed, but I freak up every time. I end up getting pollen all over the place, and I can't. So I stay away from the males unless I find a good one. Unless I can, my eyes in tuned where I've grown enough plants that when I see a plant, I'm like, ooh, she's different. So I'll take a separator and I'll give her to the man that does breed. And he does his little thing and makes magic, but only if it's good. Like, it's got to be. I don't do clones, but the seeds got to be better than the year before. If they're starting to get weak, you got to do something. I've seen people bleed their genetics out, and I think that's what's happened to a lot of genetics, honestly. And I ain't gonna say where at, but now I do not source genetics from certain places, if you know what I mean.
100%, brother. So I just, again, I am super grateful. Um, these particular seeds did not come from Kentucky Organics. They came from Kay, who lives in Kentucky, who pulled them out of a vault from his dad's vault
Yes, sir.
and then sent them to me. So you guys know these are authentic Kentucky breeds that
I
really.
sent 2 packs too. I didn't. JR. I sent you a 96 and a 98.
Yep.
That's 2 packs. Yeah, that's what I thought. I
Yep.
got some 2001 that he had bred closer to Hazard. I'm going ahead and say that because we don't live there, but he had bred closer to Hazard, Kentucky around 2001. He was making seeds down through there. So, but he wasn't near as loud as them 96 seeds to me. I grew both of them, but now I'm not that good at growing inside. So, but now when, I like to compare my shit. Like I say, I'm getting ready to compare your cat piss against AK's cat piss. I got both of them, AK Bean Brain and yours. I'm more run.
Oh,
And
that's
because your cat piss
a
killed
very
you.
good point you brought up. There are two different. So, guys, someone specifically, let me just say, I hate to say it because I don't want to call anybody out, really, there's a myth or a lie going around right now, trying to say that my cat piss is AK Bean Brain's cat piss. The only thing that I ever ran from AK Beans, period, was his Hawaiian cat piss. And although it looked amazing and it had this really cool orange look to it, and it was beautiful, it just wasn't my cup of tea because it didn't have a strong cat piss smell to it. And it did have a smell to it of piss in the background, but it was more Hawaiian tasting and smelling. And we just decided we didn't want to grow it anymore, period. And I still have a bunch of those seeds. And now my cat piss was found in a bag seed that was just called cat piss many, many, many years ago. And I didn't think anything of it except that when I smoked that weed back in the day, when I got it, I paid $60 an eighth for it. And it was the fucking best weed I've ever smoked. So I
I
was
caught
like,
it.
what the
It was
fuck?
like Mother Nature, bro. When I smoked your cat piss, it was like smoking Mother Nature. I was like, damn, it tastes just like, damn, taste that. That's got like, next thing I know, man, it was, I'm like, oh my God. And it grew. Hey, your cat piss, I think there's all, man, everybody does. You know, me tell you why I like your work, JR? Because you throw it out there. You don't hide your shit, man. You sent me, like I said, you sent me the white rhino, the cat piss, the ground, everything I've grew of yours. I mean, the white rhino, bro. I posted it all over the place. If I could have one plant the rest of my life, it would be her. She grew straight up. She's the best plant I've ever grew. And that's why I'm going to run 5 over. And I promise you, if I can find one, I will plant. I will hit her with what I plan on doing. I got plans. It's got the white rhino winner this year. And I sure hope I get one. I sure hope and I got 5 left out of that pack.
You know, it's the craziest thing that you're saying that this white rhino is the best, because my partner, ironically, he has the same name as you, and and he it's in his garden right now,
Oh yeah.
And he just straight out says, bro, whatever that is, that white rhino fucking killing everything in the garden. It is
Does.
the best one in the garden by far. The structure, the body, the smell. He says it smells straight skunky. It
Yeah.
has this fucking pungent smell of old school. He says it's destroying everything in the garden right now. And this is his words, not mine. And I'm like,
It
oh,
moves. It moves everything out of the way. It's like it just moves everything. Everything moves for it. Like it's like here. You just go and it just when it sets root, it moves. I mean, then when I told you I vegged it, re-vegged it, put it back in, I put it in 2 different locations. I had it all over the damn place. It when that son of a bitch would not quit growing. That's why I said, frig it, let her grow. She in 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, she had outgrew everything in my flower tent. And everything, and that's dead serious. She had shut straight up, structurally, right up. I was like, wow.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, brother. Not to toot my own horn, but I cannot fucking wait, man, because you got its twin sister on the way in that land race Afghan hash plant times that 80s Northern Lights #1, brother.
I already took
And,
that under my arm.
and if those two get married and have a child, to quote,
Outdoors, son. That's what I said.
to quote my favorite line from Pineapple Express, it's the product of baby fucking.
Yeah, get them good. That's what I said. You can just see, and you can see the seed, like the seeds A grade. Like my dad. I don't. He stays private. He's a private breeder. But he can grade a seed like no other, man. He's good at telling you if it's male or female by just looking at them, man. Like I said, as soon as he grabbed your seeds, he was like, I mean, I think that he just looked at me. He's like, damn, you're going to get some good ones there, son. I was like, I know. Look at them, right? So, I mean, I just took them under my arm, man. Them was going to be right now. It's just as if everything goes right, and if I can get that white rhino to come out popping like it did inside, it will do 20 times better outside. That's just facts, and that I'm itching so bad to drop them. You know, I got them already wrote down on my seed tracker. I mean, I've got them wrote down in my notebook, and I got my spring water ready. I got my jars all labeled. But I know if I don't wait 9 more days, you know, I like everything I do on a date, but I'm getting itchy. You know, I'm getting fidgety.
Yep. You know, this is random as hell, just a random thought. But I was thinking about it as y'all were talking about it. I knew that them seeds were going to be special before you and I had ever even been introduced, Kane. Before we ever even talked, I knew they were going to be special just off the year. Because as a cannabis historian, which I consider myself to be somewhat of a cannabis historian. I'm not an expert because we learn every day, but
every day.
But I mean, from everything that I've learned and everything that I've experienced and everything that I've been shown and seen and touched and smoked and all that, dude, there's 2 golden eras currently. There's 2 golden eras in cannabis, in my opinion, and that is the late '60s into the early '70s, specifically the early '70s. And then the early to the mid '90s, especially the mid '90s, the early '70s and the mid '90s, those were the 2 pinnacles of cannabis, in my opinion. Everything coming out of those 2 eras was fire.
Yep. Everything in high school I smoked, man, was just like I'm telling you. Everything I can remember us boys gathering around at my mom's basement, and they'd be about 5 or 10 of us shooting a pool, and my old man would pull in, and I'm telling you, and they can say what they want, but now I'm telling you guys, the super knot, I don't even know what to say because I didn't breed it. I just got to experience it. I got to open the can, dig down in there, dig some out, and me and my boys, we got to experience that shit. And I'm telling you what, right now, my mama did not like it when I fired that shit up. She did not approve of that stuff. That stuff would reek you out of the house, and I don't know what it was.
That's how I feel about the original kryptonite, which I wish fucking Trichrome Technologies would pull their head out of their ass, because they're the only ones, to my knowledge, and I'm not saying they're the only ones, they're the only ones to my knowledge that still have the legit late '80s, early '90s cut of the true kryptonite. And I remember smoking that shit, and I can't even describe the fucking smell. It was like what fucking sour diesel and sour kush wishes it could be. It was the most foul, sour,
Yep.
acrid, chemically fucking smell that you would ever smell, and it just fucking filled the room. As soon as you lit up a joint, the whole house smelled like that shit.
I swear, and this shit was so hard that I mean, it's like you had to have scissors to cut this shit up, and it was so hard. Like it. And now, from my knowledge, that's the way I become super knot. Now, I reckon they would it like felt a knot in your pocket, like they would walk around, and then it got changed to Kush. I don't know. I'm not trying to step on nobody's
Well,
toes.
from my understanding, the spelling of the knot aspect is actually supposed to be Naught, and it's supposed to be super knot, like it's some super shit that will shoot you into outer space like an astronaut, and that's where the knot.
Very possibly could be. It probably that's why I said my knowledge ain't as good as yours. So that's probably right. I just the only thing, see, it was getting shipped up through here through the Florida and the Kentucky line, this was before all the pills hit. So, they weren't really watching it then because this was before Oxy's Fest hit. I don't know if y'all know anything about Oxycontin, but they destroyed this area. Well, before that, it was nothing but marijuana coming up through here. And these bikers that lived up through here, my dad was close to, they was bringing it in them Donald Duck orange juice cans, but that they didn't have Donald Duck labels on them, but that's what the cans look like. There was them big old metal cans, and you could open one, and they'd be a little over a pound always, never under, but always over, like maybe an ounce. But I'm telling you what, you would have to peel it out with a knife, and it would set out in a jar. My dad throw a piece of fruit in the bag. Now, he would put this shit in a bag, and he would take a piece of fruit, a little piece of orange peeling, throw it in the bag, wrap it up, put it in the freezer. He'd have about 30 bags in the freezer, 30 pounds. All that, he fit as he can. That's about what he got about one time. And wait, 24 hours.
Now that we've got on the subject of the super knot, and you brought up the bikers, that's a perfect organic transition into the OG conversation, into the history of the OG.
Oh yeah.
So why don't we talk about that?
This shit?
Let's do that because, guys, we're gonna move into now. We just finished up the skunk era and what roadkill skunk is, where the seed line that I got what came from. It did, again, there were two people, there were actually four people. There's also, Blue Sky has his skunk as well, which has a roadkill skunk, or what do you call it?
I've heard nothing but good things about him and Kentucky Organics, bro. I've heard them killing it.
Yeah, so the ones that I'm most impressed with was yours. That's why.
I just wanted to try it out myself. You sent me your shit. I'm like, damn, dude, your shit kills it, bro. I sent you my shit. I like to grow shit. I want to see it. You stepped up and you was like, here, shut up. And I kept aggravating you. Send me some beer, bro. Try your shit. Next thing you're like, here, bro, leave me alone.
No, bro, I'd never say that. I love.
He said the same thing to me. He was like, "Here, man, fucking take it. Leave me get off my line."
I was like, hell yeah, about time, bro. I'm seeing you killing it, and I like to see, I see you putting it out there. That's what I like, Brad. I watched your podcast with but what was it? The one with the podcast you did, JR. The big with the one you did with what is it? Peter and them.
Oh yeah, what's his name? James Loud and Peter.
Yes, I watched that, bro. I watched that. Yeah, that's like some big time deal right there, bro. You're in a conversation with, I think, what was it? 707 was in there with you?
Yeah, 707.
Oh, he's a legend himself, bro. All these dudes, all you guys. You know what I mean? I don't care who you are. You putting in work like that, you're a legend, bro. You're a stamp, bro. Yeah, and in the future, as these genetics get bled out, if people like you all don't do something about it, it's just gonna, it's sad, man. It's sad. That's why I source my genetics from people like you, Duke Diamond, Mr. Happy. I make sure that the breeder knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. It's just like horses here in Kentucky, bro. You don't go for the horse, bro. You go for the person that's breeding that horse. That's who you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Same thing, horse, bro. So, I don't look at the seeds. I look at the guy making the seeds.
I appreciate that, my bro. And again, I want to give credit to where credit's due. Again, I found 4 basic skunks, and they all had a variation of the skunks. Yours, again, like I said, the 1996 one was the one that was closest to what I believe the roadkill skunk was, or that version of something very
That's what
close
I
to that. Now there was the Kentucky Organics. He had a Culvertown skunk times the Burmese times the Afghan, and that was it had a skunky profile straight out. It was burnt rubber skunk. So I was like, that's cool, and it had a great structure to it. It was a great plant, and I
he
give
was
him credit for doing whatever he did with that. I don't even know what he actually
doing
did,
the work.
you know, on that one exactly. But the seeds that that I purchased, and during, by the way, he doesn't like me right now because I cut him off. There was some issues with him, and the reason why he didn't like me, I'll just tell you the whole story. It's pretty simple. I helped him out a lot. He had no followers. He came out of some situation, and I said, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna hook you up, man." And so I ended up taking his whole. I ended up taking his line, the Red Hair Skunk, because I believed in him. You know, he came over my house, and we got to know each other. And I mean,
Wow.
it was a nice guy. You know, when I met him, there was no problems at all. I thought he was a decent person. And then from there, he actually made a whole trip all the way down the coast in California, went to every single dispensary there was, all the high-end LA dispensaries. He comes back with a bag full of weed, just all these different kinds of weeds and this, and he'll smell this one, taste this one, smell this one, taste this one. And then I broke out my stuff, which happened to be the cat piss and the white rhino. And he was like, "Oh my God, bro, your stuff just kills everything in the game, period." And that's how we started developing that relationship. He realized that what I had was like something special. And then from there, we started building our friendship a little bit. And so I ended up saying, "Hey, bro, I'll hook you up." Because again, I'm the kind of guy that, hey, if you're cool with me, I'm going to be real fucking cool with you. So at this time, we were both buddies. And and I'm like, okay, cool. We got some old Kentucky stuff. Fuck yeah, let's do it. What do you got? You know, he starts talking about the skunk stuff. And I had never tested it, so it was kind of like my only thing that I ever sold that I didn't test personally before I sold it, because he was in a hard spot and I wanted to help him out. So I made a deal with him. We did a 60-40 split. He got 60% of the profits. I got 40%. I did pretty much all the work. He created some seeds. I put it on my website. I introduced it. He had no connections at the time. I sold out. He wanted to sell it for $150 or $125, and I thought it was worth more. So I sold it for like 225 to 275, something like that, and it sold 20 packs sold. Boom. And I gave him all this money. Plus, I to help support the sale, I threw in an extra 2 packs of my own gear, my cat piss, which is $250 by itself, and other stuff that I had, my white rhino stuff and different things, just to help him out. Once I finally sell everything, I ask him for another round of it. So he sends me some other stuff and another round of it. And in there, for some reason, my numbers were off or something was happening here. And I was like, I'm not sure what's going on, but because I trusted you and I didn't count everything, and I'm not going to count every single bean. I just trust that we're buddies and we're good. You know, I started realizing that, hey, dude, I think there's a couple packs short here or something weird. He freaked out. And then I also said, and there's two in here that are kind of like dead seeds. They're not worth selling. He goes, bro. And then he just freaked out on me. That was the whole moment I realized the bipolarness in him. And it was just a bad situation. He totally had a bad attitude. Dude, I can't believe, and I'm all, dude, I just hooked you up with fucking 60% of the sales. On this one, I'm almost done selling out. I'm on my last pack, and I'm realizing that I might be short a pack or two. Whether I miscounted or I didn't take so I took the responsibility because of that. I said, you know what, I'm still gonna pay you full board, which I did. I never fucking took anything from this guy. And in that, he gave me 2 packs out of that for all that service. He gave me 1 pack of the red hair skunk and 1 pack of Christmas skunk, which was part of the service that I offered him. And there was no giving, there's no permission that I needed from him. This was, he gave it to me because I worked my ass off to sell all this stuff and get it done for him. Then I paid him out, paid his friend out because his friend had just gotten out of jail and he needed some money. And the cool thing is that Kentucky Organics actually donated almost half of the profits to his buddy because he went to jail. So I thought that was fucking very honorable. And I thought, wow, this fucking guy's kind of cool to do that. So because of that, I was very giving. But when I asked him for 2 more seeds, 2 broken seeds that for some reason just didn't look good enough for me to sell, he literally freaked the fuck out on me. And then then I started actually going a little further with it because I was kind of pissed that he did that. And I said, bro, I think I might just be a couple packs short. Be honest with you. Now that I'm looking at my fucking numbers, and then he just fucking went ballistic on me, saying, dude, you know, I counted every single one. You know, they're all perfect. And I'm like, dude, I'm asking you for a pack of seeds, bro. One fucking pack. I did all this fucking work for you. One fucking. We just lost Kay, but he'll probably come back on here in a second. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is that I ended up, you know, just at that point, I decided that this wasn't a relationship that I wanted to work with, and that was it. And then we separated. But then he kept hounding my site and pulling all my followers to him directly to purchase from him directly. And so I thought that was kind of leechy, kind of weird. That after I, it looks like guys, I okay, Mr. Happy's still here. Um,
Yeah.
so so I thought that was kind of weird, and I was like, dude. So then at that point, since he was still kind of like, you know, probing my website and probing and probing my Instagram and pulling my followers and saying that's mine, that's mine, that's mine, which I had no problem giving him credit for it, because credit's due where it's due. It's he created it, or he brought it, or he found it, or whatever it was that he did with it. It's fine, dude. It's his. I didn't create it, and I'm not trying to make my money off of any. You know how much money I've made off a skunk? I literally, the only skunk I've ever sold was untested skunk, and I hate to say it, it was his stuff, and I never will do that again. But that was my lesson behind it, and thank God it actually was skunk and did have, because now after I'm testing it, it definitely was skunk. And it wasn't the only skunk in the game. Blue Sky had a dead carcass skunk. You know, I smelt his skunk. I had some guy from Kentucky, ironically, sell me trucker skunk for $300 for 6 seeds. And I was like, fuck it, I'll try it. You know, if it's roadkill skunk like you say it is, it'll be worth it. And there was skunk in there. And then it was then Kay's stuff, and his stuff was the best out of all of it, as far as the visual, as far as the frosty content, as far as the smell, as far as everything. It just felt like it felt right. So now, however, I can't say the other thing that I really loved from Kentucky stuff was his Christmas skunk, but technically it was 1997 Christmas skunk crossed to the Culvertown skunk that he had, and that one is pretty fucking amazing. Unfortunately, it had Hermie issues, and now because I'm a breeder, my instinct is I found something beautiful. I'm going to breed with it, and I'm going to stabilize it and see if I can stabilize it. And so again, credit due to where credit came from. Mr. Kentucky Organics, it was nice to meet you, brother. I just don't like your attitude, so I can't work with you and I can't promote you. How about that? But aside from all that, you're a cool dude, and I don't need any beef with you, bro. But I just, you know, I'm gonna run your genetics because I purchased them, because I did the work for them, and you don't have any God hand on this. You can't tell me not to run your gear. You and same thing with AK Beans or anybody else out there who says weird shit like that. Nobody can tell me after I purchase it, and it was my purchased because it was my time, my labor, my efforts. Those were purchase packs, and I can run them, breed with them, do whatever the fuck I want with anybody's gear that I have in front of me. If you let it out of your hands, it is now into the public. Like, you can buy my gear right now. Don't give me any credit whatsoever and call it yours. And I don't care, because I'm not paying attention to your website, and I really don't care about anything that you're doing. I'm caring about my clients and my people and what I'm doing, and I'm invested in my time and my projects and my stuff. And I have no time to probe your stuff and find out who's breeding with my gear and selling and making money on my stuff. Honestly, I'm honored if you do. I think it's a privilege to have people breed with my stuff and sell their stuff, even if they don't tag me on it. I don't care. That stuff's so unimportant to me. But for some reason, you, Kentucky Organics, need me or wanted me to make sure that everybody knew who you were. So how about this? This is your call. I'm calling it out. Those were from you. But the ones that I was the most impressed with on the skunk didn't come from you. and they were still Covertown skunks. Now, they came from K, and so with that,
Hey, brother, do you mind if I say just a couple quick things? I promise not to spend too much time on it.
no problem. And Kay, if you want to talk a little bit about Kentucky Organics as well, and just what you think about, what he's been doing and how he's been acting, feel free to as well.
Well, no, I think his work. I mean, like can y'all hear me?
We can,
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Something happened, but now I think his work's great, man. And this is not only Kentucky Organics. This goes for everybody that breeds or grows. First off, experience sees experience. Okay, for people that's been growing for 2 or 3 years, and you try to get into breeding, don't do that. Just grow. I've been growing since I don't know, 94. My dad had me in the patch about in the early 90s, and I started growing on my own about 96. And and I still cannot get breeding. I can stabilizing. I love to grow, man, and my mind don't go that far. It just goes to picking plants. I love looking at phenos. I love growing 300 different types of seeds and saying, bam, there she is. That's what, and that goes for anybody that wants to breed out there. You all don't hate on other people's work. When somebody buys a pack of seeds and they find a male plant and they take that and they add to the gene pool, that's what they're doing. They're adding to the gene pool. All right. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. But don't hate on the man for putting in the work. Don't hate on the man for spending the money. Don't hate on the man for taking time out of his day to do that, until you actually sit down and watch somebody do it and take their time and spend time months on end putting work in, and then you end up saying, damn, there's the leaf to the bud ratio is not right, or the structure is not right, or you just scrapped a whole year's work because some pollen got mixed up. And then sometimes somebody gets it right because they spend the money to get it right, because they got the right setup, because and that's where you come in. You spend the money to do it right, to do it correctly. And that's why I say it's so important for people to source the right genetics, not looking at the seeds themselves, but look at the person making the seeds. Look at the time they spend on it. Watch them. Look at them, man, and you can see the passion, and the passion will show in the plants. You can tell when you grow that seed, you just back up and let it grow itself. It does everything itself. That's a good breeder. That's what I've got out of your stuff, JR. Honestly, I just plant it and it grows itself. This will be the first year I get to run them outside, and I hope. And if they do half as good as they do outside, then I'll be happy, because you just back up and let them do the work. That's what I like when it comes to a breeder myself. It's spending time, nobody hating on them. I don't like the hating. I don't like people hating on somebody just because they found something better than they did, or I don't understand it, man. Because it's a plant. It don't belong to us. It don't belong to us. It belongs to Mother Nature and God. They decide. We just add to the gene pool, boys. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But don't hate on them, man, putting in work. That's what I got.
I actually do understand it, but I think that the typical consumer who's not in that bracket of being a knowledgeable breeder or a well-established grower, anybody who's either a typical cannabis consumer or even a typical growing consumer, just a regular everyday Joe looking to buy some beans, I don't think that they understand the difference. And this is something that I've been wanting to address for a while. I've talked to JR about it, and we'll hopefully be able to do a more in-depth conversation on this in the future. But I'm just going to touch on it because it's a good time. Is people need to understand the difference between respecting the breeder versus respecting the work or respecting the genetics. It's just like any fucking thing else, and it's really getting out of hand. It's just getting worse and worse every day, and it's I'm over it. You don't have to fucking like somebody as an individual to respect their fucking work. Period,
No.
point blank. I don't give a fuck who you think's a good guy, who you think's an asshole. Some people think I'm a good guy. Some people think I'm an asshole. Some people think JR is the best guy in the world. Other people can't fucking stand him. It goes for anybody, any name you can name. Learn to draw the line between, do their genetics actually suck, or do you just not like them as a fucking person? And
Right.
it can be two different things, because it's just like the shit going on right now. Never, not once in this conversation have I heard JR say anything negative about either of those two individuals' work. Has he
Hell
said,
no.
like, yeah, there are some things that I can improve on? Yes, but anything can be fucking improved. His shit can be improved, and he strives every day to improve his shit. But he's not shitting on anybody's work. He's just saying their personality is not for mine.
It's not
That
job.
people have to differentiate that.
Yep.
Differentiate the breeder from the work. And last but not least, it's crazy to me how half of these fucking people who have the audacity and the ego to get bent out of shape because somebody's not giving them credit. Dude, anybody who wants to test me, please. Message me and name any fucking breeder in the entire industry and any fucking strain in their entire catalog, and I can guarantee you that I can pinpoint somebody that they took their work from and didn't give credit for.
Get them. That's what I'm saying. My dad. Hey, that's the truth.
Straight up, bro. Everybody's working off of somebody else's work eventually. I mean, I'm sure even my cat, even though it was bag seed, it was somebody else's work before it was bag seed to me. And then I took that and ran with it. The guy doesn't even know me. I don't know him. I appreciate whatever work he did to put into it to find the cat piss, to, and now I get to enjoy that. The white rhino, it's not mine. That's I forget who it is. Greenhouse Genetics back in the 90s or something like that. Or
which it went to him from Shanti. Like,
and you just made it better.
At the end of the day,
Like
unless you literally are getting on a plane and going to Afghanistan and going to Africa and going to Thailand and visiting the tribes, not purchasing off the local, actually going to the tribes and sourcing those land races yourself and solely working from land races, you're stealing your shit from somebody. If that's what you want to call it, that's what everybody's fucking doing. Nobody is above it. You know why? Because nobody owns it, like Kay just said. So get the fuck over yourself, you narcissist breeders.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's what my daddy says, man. He says that he calls them growers and operators. You got people that want to bitch and complain, and they love to grow pot, right? They love to stick it out there and watch it grow. But then you got operators that people actually spend money sourcing, breeding, that do work, that actually write down notes, and I seen him do it, man. I've seen him take months on end and just scrap work. Like, it's no good because the leaf to the bud ratio was off. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? I mean, you just spent all this money on this, trying to make this one thing, and you're scrapping it because there's too many leaves on it. And I'm like, wow, just the work I see him put in. But then when he gets it right, it's like when you get it right, you get it right. It's a beautiful thing to see your what you put in, like that white rhino, how she just pushed, like she literally, she just grew structurally or straight up, pushed everything out of the way, and that you knew that whatever you made there was better than her mom. You just knew it. And maybe the next run might not be as good, but now that specific pack had 3 different phenos. One male I scrapped, wish I hadn't. There was 2 females. One grew structurally straight up like that one, and the other one grew great. But that other, but the one that I posted all about was just absolutely, like, she grew with the plant, with the tent. Like it was a crowded tent, so she grew vertically. Every branch on her grew like straight to the light, and she just moved everything out of the way. And if I could have, I wished I just didn't have no male pollen, or I would have hit it with her, because anything you hit with that's gonna be awesome. That's just but you got blessed on that plant, JR. You did the right work. You put it in. Now maybe the next time might not be as good, I don't know. Maybe somebody would take your white rhino and do as good. Maybe I could take it and make it better, but if not,
Yeah,
so be it.
It would be my honor, man, if something like that happened. And sometimes stuff like that happens, and people then will send me a couple samples, and then I get to take it from there and work with it a little bit, taste it, and then release it. And so they're usually pretty proud that I'm actually working with their stuff. That this is about preservation. This isn't.
Well, let me say, you're a better. Plus, you are a better breeder than I am. You put the money to it, man. You actually, that's what you do. You're a breeder. I'm a grower. People need to differentiate that. Now that's where the line meets right there. Are you a breeder or a grower? I'm a grower. I specifically love to grow. I don't try to breed. You, JR, are a breeder. You can make you grow for seeds. And then when that's what you do. That's what you know to do. It's just in your nature. I love to grow. So I think people try to get it mixed up, man. Just because you're a grower don't mean you can breed. I'm sorry.
And not only that, man, but a lot of these legendary strains that people are claiming to have created are in actuality, they're just fucking phenos.
Yeah.
Of pre-existing strains that have been isolated and renamed. This happens all the time. Case in point with fucking OG Kush. It happens all the fucking time. Like, you and I were talking about the other day, Kay. You brought up the fucking Irene Kush. And I was like, oh, Irene Kush is a fucking phenotype that was found in bag seed from an early 90s OG in Atlanta. And they fucking found a particular pheno that they loved and they held on to it and they grew it out. And now it's coming back out. People think it's some original isolated original creation of an OG. No, it's a fucking pheno.
Yeah, I would have seen that plan. I heard some people. I think it was Duke Diamond talking about on a podcast about it, and I would have loved to got to witness that one. But I didn't get to see her.
Oh, I've had it. It's a beautiful strain, but again, knowing what it is, it's a pheno.
Yeah,
It's just a branch off of another fucking strain. So, like I said, I cannot comprehend. I can't wrap my brain around it. And it seems, I don't know why. I definitely can't explain why it seems so prevalent on the skunk scene here lately. But it's like, everybody's like, this is my creation. I created this. No, you either had a fucking pheno that you isolated and you renamed it, or you took something from somebody else, crossed it with something else, didn't give them credit for it, and then said, here's my creation. It's all original. It's all me. Like, do y'all think that I was born at night, but I wasn't born at last night, brother? This shit ain't nothing new. This shit's been going on for decades. Y'all are not where you need.
That's growing that too. I got friends, and I don't want to give them a shout out. I don't know if they want me to say anything, but now they're growing that Burmese cross, and they're killing it with it right now. And it's Red Hair Skunk, and they're pulling some great skunk phenos. But they're from Kentucky, and they're not. Oh, it's special. No, it's not special to them because it's not a legend. It's just a damn. Boys, you'll find it just fucking plants. If you sprout enough seeds, you'll find you a skunk phenotype in there. Just keep sprouting, keep popping. You'll find you one.
100%.
And with that, guys, I would perfect. I think that's a perfect close on the skunk thing, because I was already getting threats, from people, and I ended up ending a friendship with Blue Sky because of skunk. I'm like, really, dude? Because I did a pheno hunt and didn't call yours the best skunk in the world. And then, I found, and then Kentucky Organics is like, leaving weird posts and, on my website and doing weird shit. And then on top of that, he just threatened, making posts and saying that he's going to come try to kick my ass or some weird stuff like that. I'm like, dude,
that's crazy, bro. I apologize.
For what?
I don't know. I just, that gives Kentucky a bad name, man. We're not like that, bro. We don't, anyway, man, we don't, everybody, these old timers around here, man, they love genetics, man. They ain't trying to share. They don't own, like my dad said, we don't own the plant, man. We don't own the plant. We can't own something you can't own something like that. it's naturally Mother Nature and God's that they do. I don't know, man. I can't explain it. It gets me upset. I don't like talking about it sometimes
I
because
totally get that, bro. It upset me yesterday. I'm over it today, but I just wanted to address it because I was like, I didn't steal anything from anyone. I don't need your permission after I purchased the deal with my labor. I don't need anybody. I don't need AK beans. I don't. If I buy your gear, it's now considered my gear, not your gear. If you didn't want to release it, then don't release it. That's your issue. If I get it in my hands, it's mine. That's it. Unless somehow I was a tester of yours and you said specifically, hey, you're a tester, you're under contract not to share anything outside of this except with me. Cool. That I understand. That's a whole different world. But I don't need to call a breeder up and say, hey, do you mind if I breed with your stuff? Dude, that's some bullshit. Yeah, there's some kind of respect there. I get that. Hey, if you find, listen, guys, I give everybody permission to breed with my stuff. Every single one of you. Blue Sky, you want to do it? Handle it, bro. You want to sell cat piss of mine? Great. You want to sell my rhino now? Sell it, bro. Make your money. Your followers are much different than my followers. Enjoy your life. Kentucky Organics. Hey, bro. Sorry, man. I'm breeding with your stuff. It's just the way it is. And I'm grateful for you, bro. Appreciate it. I wish we had a better friendship. It just didn't work out. Sorry. I moved on. I hope you can move on. Now, as far as what I'm going to be doing next, I got a whole skunk line I'm going to release, not just your stuff. And it's not all just your skunk. You didn't create skunk in this world. And quite frankly, I think the best skunk I found was K's skunk. That's just what my opinion. Okay.
And that's not my skunk. That like I said, that went back. That's just so that was some seeds that was gifted from an old moonshiner that got his steel busted up in eastern Kentucky. He got his steel busted up. Like I said, we happened to live in Springfield at the time, and this guy happened to live in Hazard at the time. I mean, I'm saying the county, bro. I don't care. I just want to get this correct because pinpoint it at the exact location. I'll tell you something. Hazard, Kentucky is one place that them seeds come out of. All right, Eastern Kentucky. Moonshiner, that's where he was from. His name was Blue, and he was from Hazard. And if anybody knows anything about Hazard, they know two things: moonshine and marijuana. All right, that's what they bred. Now, I don't know. Now, this guy was a Vietnam veteran. I don't know where he accumulated them seeds from, because by the time that I was the age of 13, he was dead. He was dead of black lung disease. Black lung killed him. That's what took this man out, because he was a coal miner. He was a coal miner / moonshiner. He made moonshine on the side, and when they buzzed steel up, he started growing. That's when, and this dude, I wish I'd got to know him more, but I get to see it through my dad's eyes. I got to see him grow it, and that's why I said you got to get it from the source. Go down the line and get it from these OGs. You got to be from. You can't just don't talk about it, man. I want to see. Like, I can tell you where. Like, I'm sorry. That's where I can tell you. Moonshine, man. I could take you to the cave that the steel was in. I wish I could do that, but this is how. That's where. That's where those seeds come from. That guy, he accumulated them. We just happened to be living in Springfield at the time. That's the only reason they was labeled Springfield, because that's where we lived at, and then, but we moved back to Hazard. We was back. It was a constant move. You was always on the move. If you were a breeder in those days, you was never in one spot too long. You understand what I'm saying?
100%, bro.
So
100%.
if you did it for a living, that's what you did. You moved.
And that's why a lot of those old cuts were so good too, because if you understand that those old school breeders were constantly having to move.
Yep.
And I mean, constantly. It didn't matter if they were having to grow outside or if they were growing indoors, because even back then there were some indoor growers. It was rare, but there were some.
Very few.
They were having to constantly move. They were having to constantly move either to avoid the law or because of the law.
Always.
And so they didn't have time for the bullshit. They had to quickly look at, say 80 plants. They had to quickly say, I can take one or I can take two. What's the best?
Yes. How many can I fit in the trunk? Get the best ones and let's go. That's what he told me.
So it just constantly got better and better.
Yep. That's how it
So,
was. Boy.
so to me, that's all I'm going to say about the Skunk Wars.
Yep.
And
I
I
love it.
think
Skunk Wars.
Come on down to
Star
Eastern
Wars.
Kentucky. Hey, if y'all want some skunks, just go down to Eastern Kentucky and talk to an 18-year-old kid. That's trust me, you'll find some skunk seeds. That's
Yeah, I mean that's
how
what
easy
I'm
it
talking
is for
about.
real.
Hey, bro,
Uh,
I'm a believer now because now I
yeah.
understand what it smells like. I didn't think I didn't. I thought I knew, but I didn't know. The first person who ever showed me a pheno of a skunk uh, phenotype was Blue Sky, and when I smelled it in his stuff, I did find the carcassy, nasty smell, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Never smelled that before. The first time I ever smelled like a skunk spray was yours. The first time I ever smelled burnt rubber was actually in my dumpster from Ohio. The cross from dumpster Ohio, and it was a burnt rubber smell, and of course the
Which is fucking Northern Lights. Again, proving that shit can come out of anything.
yeah,
Dumpster is a pheno of Northern Lights.
there it
Yep.
is. And so bottom line, and then finally I got the Red Hair Skunk from Culvertown. Also had that skunky burnt rubberish smell, and I was like, cool. So there were several different places where it came from. And then I decided, well, you know what I'm going to do is create a super skunk or super skunks. And I'm going to take the best stuff I found, all the males I found, and I'm going to mix and match all the skunks profiles to see if I can find. And then from there, I'm going to do more work into the back crossing of the 1996 stuff. And
Wow.
I'm going to go into the work of it because I need to know what I have in the F2s. And then I'm going to go into the back crossing of it, and then I'm going to release cuts. And that way it's final, it's done. Skunk is out. I believe Skunk was out when Blue Sky was here.
Yeah.
Now I
You're
know.
just going to put a better version of it out, I believe.
Yeah,
Not to mention that I just put a couple others on your radar this morning, didn't I, Jay?
yeah. We talked about shoreline skunk, and
Yep.
different kinds of skunks that are out there. And then if we found it even in skunky stuff in my partner, one of my partners, literally is saying that my white rhino has a skunk profile.
That for real, that fruity skunk. And then my wife. I mean, I wish my wife would get on there and attest to that OG 18 from DNA in the trunk of her car. And
I've smelled it.
yeah, get that out of here.
You notice I've never said anything when you brought that up. I've smelled it myself. I ran the OG 18.
Yep, I'm telling you, she says if she get on here, she tell you right now, she's like that shit was in a jar and you could smell it driving down the road, and it was in the trunk in a jar. You could still smell it, skunky as hell, and it was from DNA OG 18. That's just the terpene of that one. I mean, that's just how. I don't know why, but it was
skunky shit I ever had in my entire life didn't have skunk in it at all. It was just regular old hash plant, and it was fucking foul. It smelled like you had a fucking dead body in your trunk.
Yeah, I don't even know why people get caught up on it. Like JR said, I don't even know why even people like to talk about it as much as they do. It's like it's not. I mean, just a plant, bro. I mean, give me the white rhino every day. I'll take it 10 times over the skunk. I'm sorry. The skunk to me don't grow good at all. I don't like growing them. I don't like to grow them because they just don't grow like the white rhino, man. They're fidgety. Sometimes they're weak. Sometimes they're strong. Sometimes they want to go longer, some shorter. They want to frown when they're upside down. They don't like to pray. I don't like plants I love them. I love a plant that loves to pray. When I go in my garden, I like to see them praying. That's how I know they're doing
Holy
good.
weed, baby, holy weed.
Yeah, amen, brother. And that white rhino, it prayed every day for me. She was that go in there and she'd be praying while the others be just frowning.
Oh my God, I love that, bro. That's a
now I'm going into
man. You gotta grow that shit, man. If you grow it right. I mean, you ain't gotta. You just back up. All you got, if you get some good base soil, back up. Let the plant do the job. It will show you what it's got.
You work for the plant does not work for you.
Yeah, experience.
Simple.
Very
All right,
simple.
I'm going into interview mode. JR.
Yes, sir.
I'm in interview mode. What do you want to know about OG Kush, brother?
Okay, so guys, now we're going to go into the OG history because I want people to understand the full true history of OG. And there are several different histories because there are different OG lines. We're going to get into that detail, and Mr. Happy is going to get into that. We're going to talk about, and Kay, feel free to jump in because you have a lot of history with OG, the original OGs too, knowing the Super Knot and the Florida stuff and different things, that Hell's Angel OG, just whole different lines, right? So we're going to get into, the Josh D, the Matt Bubba, Kush guy, and Alec, and all the other stuff that potentially happened, and the accidental crossings and all the stuff that potentially happened down this. And then we're also going to kind of give you a timeline here where the grandpa OG comes into play, and how that and where it might have came from, right?
I'm getting ready to run 10 of them. I'm getting ready to run some of them. I'm going to tell you, I'll test those for you this summer, JR.
That's awesome, man. I cannot wait, bro. To be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to your opinions on that too, and everybody else out there. So Mr. Happy, by the way, he's a historian, okay?
Oh, yeah, you didn't charge me a dime for those seeds, by the way. I just want to say that. Everything you sent me, you gave me. I'm sorry. You go ahead, Mr. Happy.
Oh, man, thank you, brother. I mean, appreciate
it. That's the same thing with Mr. Happy. Everything I got, he sent me free, guys. So, y'all don't be scared to ask. All you got to do is ask the test for these guys, and they'll help you.
100%, man. Especially
I'm sorry. You go right ahead.
So Mr. Happy, tell me, what your historian views are on the history of OG, and let's nail this down for the community, because the community is so confused on what OG is, where it came from, who actually has it, the timelines on it, the people that were involved in it, just a full-on breakdown of OG.
Okay, right off the bat, I'm gonna start with the first question that anybody should be asked.
Let's do it.
Which one are we talking about?
OG.
Well,
but no, hear me out, because which OG we're talking about is going to determine the history that we're going to discuss.
Well,
True that.
The first
you already got me. I don't know which one.
There is no one definitive history. There are several original OGs that all these branch off OGs that you're seeing, the OG 18, the legendary OG, the Fire OG, the Emperor Kush, the fucking Goji OG, the Tom Ford OG. I'll keep going. I can go into the fucking hundreds. Everyone of those ties back to one of 5 or 6 primary OGs. So which one are we talking about? And we'll get into that.
Let's get into the Josh D, Matt Bubba Kush history, where most people believe that's the original OG, the one that got famous first.
Josh D met up with Bubba when Bubba moved out to California. Bubba had pretty much just about already perfected his version of Bubba Kush. He gave a cross of it to Josh D. I know Josh D crossed it with a Kim, and from my understanding, he crossed it with another Kush, and that is where Josh D OG originates from. Josh D OG is a great OG, but historically speaking, there's nothing fucking special about it. Sorry.
Wow. I blew. See, I didn't know that. I know the Bubba Kush story, and I heard it had Northern Lights. Was the base.
Yeah, no, it started with Northern Lights.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So let's talk about how Matt met Josh D and Alec, and how potentially the original OG got started.
Well, the OG that has the most history behind it is, if you were to try to find a cut of it today, which it's pretty much clone only. There are a few seed breeders who claim to have it in seed form. I've not ran them, so I can't verify, but I'll say it's doubtful. It would not surprise me if it's a clone only. It's going to be labeled as the 1992 OG. That's the legend, the pinnacle, the 92 OG. And the 92 OG it involves history of a lot of other legendary OGs. The Bubba is involved in that history. The Triangle Kush is involved in that history. The White is involved in that history. The Kryptonite is involved in that history. The Supernaut that Kay brought up earlier is involved in that history, and that led to the Josh DOG, which is why the Josh DOG is as good as it is. And that story, it all starts back in the 80s with a gentleman by the name of TK Origins. And TK Origins at that time was in his teens. He was a really good dealer. He was just dealing at the time. He was pushing a lot of weight. He caught the attention of a guy in that area who was, and I don't know if he was doing other stuff, but as far as cannabis, he was pretty much dominating the game. And TK landed on his radar, and the guy took him under his wing and pretty much was just like, I want you to be my go-to guy. And as they developed a relationship, he decided that, well, I've got this strain that you run, and that strain was simply called Emerald Triangle. Some people know it as
Hey,
Blue
hold on,
Triangle.
okay. Hold on. Let me ask you. So is Emerald Triangle Supernut? Is that what you're saying?
No, that came in later. Emerald
Okay.
Triangle, Emerald Triangle. Some people have heard it called Blue Triangle, but in the Florida area, what it was called at that time was Emerald Triangle. Nobody knows what it was, but I have a highly educated guess because of where it came from. It was being shipped to Florida in gas tanks from Oregon in the 80s. And it was the best weed anybody had seen, and it was very gassy. Well,
Sounds about right. Oregon growing the gas.
what was coming out of Oregon in the 80s that was gassy as fuck was the mother to all chem lines, the dog bud.
Dog bud. Yep. Dog bud.
I firmly believe that the Emerald Triangle was the dog bud. It's just like anything else going around that time. The same strain could go by 20 different names depending on which state you were in. Every state had a different name for the same fucking strain. So I believe that the Emerald Triangle was the dog bud. Now, that being said, so as they developed a relationship, the old man who had the old wealthy man who had taken Origins TK under his thing said, you know what? We need something new. We need to do better. And I want to start my own breeding operation, and I want to have you run it. So they brought in a respected old breeder, an underground breeder from California. That's where the beginnings of the California connection came from, was from that old breeder, because they knew that the breeders out in California were a bit different. They were bigger scale. They had a little bit more experience. They had a little bit more knowledge. They were more knowledgeable of indoor growing, which is what they knew they needed to do. So they brought him in. He took Origins TK to Amsterdam and gave him pretty much an endless fucking expenditure to get all the best genetics that he could get his hands on. And Origins TK bought out Neville's entire fucking catalog. They came back to America with almost $15,000 worth of seeds. Now, we're talking about $15,000 in 1989, 1990. That's a lot of fucking seeds.
That's a lot of weight, bro.
And they brought it back. And now it's important to understand this backstory was around that same time, you had a competitor crew that was running through Florida called the Kryptonite crew. And they were running the Kryptonite, and they were running the fucking Supernaut. And
that's where I've heard. Now, I've heard of the Kryptonite crew, and I think I know somebody that used to run. Well, he's pretty big now. I ain't gonna throw his name out there, but that's what he was talking. He was talking to me about that the other day.
Yep, and so the Kryptonite crew is where Alec Anderson came from. Now, prior to the Kryptonite crew even getting fucking taken down, because they suffered a huge raid.
The same thing. They all got raided.
Yep, and they pretty much lost everything. But prior to that, Matt Berger had been in Louisiana, and Matt Berger he said this out of his own mouth. This is the multiple interviews. Anybody can verify that. He was a shit grower. He had struggled. He couldn't keep anything alive. And he met a gentleman in Louisiana, in New Orleans, who gave him some seeds of Northern Lights that he had started growing out. They were the first ones that he had ever gotten to really grow out. And he found what he considered to be a very, very special cutting of it. And he simply called it Bubba.
Bubba. That's
Bubba.
where that.
Yeah. The Kush name was not attached. He called it Bubba because that is what he called everybody. That's what he referred to everybody was Bubba as a term of endearment. So him calling that cutting Bubba was saying, this is my friend. This is my loved one. I cherish this strain.
Yeah.
And so he took Bubba with him to Florida, and he had met and already started the beginnings of developing a relationship with Alec Anderson. Alec Anderson had the super knot. He had actually found seeds of it because him selling for the Kryptonite crew, you know, going through that weight, anybody, whether they're a grower or not, even if they're selling, you're going to come across one or two seeds, and he knew it was special, so he had held on to it. They started growing that out, and one of Bubba's friends had commented on it. He said that it looked like little Kush berries. And so that was initially, they were calling it Kush berries, which then got simply shortened to Kush. That didn't indicate that it was a Kush. Nobody actually knows what the fuck it is. They just called it Kush because the Kush berry thing. So he crossed that with his Bubba, and that was the birth of Bubba Kush. That all happened as TK was already working on crossing the Emerald Triangle with the genetics that he had brought back from Amsterdam, and his favorite from what he had brought back was an original Hindu Kush. Okay, so the Kryptonite crew goes down, and Alec Anderson and Matt Berger, i.e. Bubba, link up with Origins TK, and they were going to start working on something together, likely because word about the Bubba Kush had gotten out, and so that landed on Origin TK's radar, or on the old man's radar, that, hey, this is somebody that we need to try to work with because they've got some fire fucking genetics. Back in those days, it would have been that mentality. It's better to work together than to work against each other. And the old man had the bank, so you're not going to really compete with him. You know what I mean? So they had started working on something together, and long story short, what happened was that all these plants, the Bubba Kush, the Super Knot, the Emerald Triangle, it all was sitting in a room with a male Hindu Kush sitting at the doorway, and somebody, it's rumored that the police had busted in, but that'll never be confirmed. But somebody had opened the door too quickly, and all of the pollen from that Hindu Kush spread over all the plants in that room. And they were left to say, fuck, what do we do now? Well, I guess we wait and see what happens, and we find our best cut. And that best cut, that could have been any combination of the above. It could have been Hindu Kush times Emerald Triangle, Hindu Kush times Bubba Kush, Hindu Kush times Super Knot. That became your 1990s OG. And that is the most accurate history that you are going to get. You're not going to know if it's Hindu Kush times Super Knot, if it's Hindu Kush times Bubba Kush, or if it's Hindu Kush times Emerald Triangle. You're not going to fucking know. But you know that it came from one of those three varietals.
Wow.
Now, is there other history, like what's up with the Hell's Angel OG? And
well, I'll tell you what Hell's Angel's fucking not. Hell's Angel is not fucking Blackberry times OG Kush. That's some fucking bullshit.
Well, what's the other histories? Because that was that's the main one. Because Josh D then made that famous. Let's just continue along this path, because how did Josh G get involved here?
Well, Josh G got involved on two fronts. So he got two cuts. He got two cuts, from my understanding. Bubba left Florida and went to California. I believe he went back to Colorado in between there, but long story short, he ended up in California, and he brought two cuts with him. He brought the OG that was created in Florida, and then he brought his, at that time, pretty much perfected Bubba Kush, which now most people know as the pre-98 Bubba Kush. A legit, anyways, because there's a lot of fake pre-98 going around, but the real pre-98, I'll give it that. It's something fucking special. So he brought
I got a post on my page there of it was supposedly somebody sent me some seeds and it of a 98 Kush, and I grew it out, and it was the widest, frostiest plant, and I posted it, but now it was it was honestly, it was a dumper. She was it was more but I put a photo of it on my page. I was just wondering, the true 98 Bubba Kush, is it more frosty? Is it more like the bud to the leaf?
100%. It's like you're gonna see as far as the coal is, at least you're gonna see more white than you are green.
Okay, because that's what that plant was, pretty much all white. It was all white,
and it's heavily indica dominant. It's a hybrid, but it's extremely indica dominant.
Like very few leaves, right?
Yeah.
Very few leaf to bud ratio.
Yeah, because the original mother on it was the Northern Lights.
Okay, because that's what I agree with. I got a picture of it on the poster on my page. It was real frosty, not hardly many leaves, skinny stems. Hard nugs. It was supposedly the 98, the pre-Bubba, and it grew like it, and it looked like it. But we hit her with pollen, and she wouldn't take. Like my dad hit her with pollen hard for like 2 weeks. She never took, not one time. Now you explain that.
Yeah, sometimes the pollen is just not active, and sometimes the plant is a little bit weird too. So
well, I've heard that the Kush is like that. Like I've heard like all Bubba Kushes and any Kush is hard. Like they don't like to take that good. That's what I've heard now. They don't take pollen good.
Yeah. They will, but sometimes you got to go over them a couple times. Sometimes they have to be hit more than once.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to put probably 4 or 5. That's the only thing. I think that was their problem. We just had one. We ran one.
But and in all honesty, with Kushes in general, like real Kushes, it's best just to let them organically pollinate. You just take your male plant and put it in the room with the female and just fucking hands on them.
Oh yeah, that's how. We just used one phenotype of the pre-98 Bubba Kush instead of using 4 or 5 and putting them in a room and just hitting them with, maybe one would have took, but it's and you got to run a lot more than 1 or 2 seeds too. You got like the white rhino. I got about 40 seeds I'm gonna run over. I'm sure I'll find a good one in that many seeds.
Yeah. So back to the Josh D thing. So Bubba brought both cuts out with him. He brought the 90s OG that originated in Florida, and he brought his perfected Bubba Kush. He gave Josh D both cuts. Now, Josh D has simply said that it was Bubba Kush times Kim times another Kush. But looking at the Josh D, the real Josh D anyways, the verified Josh D, I believe that he crossed both Kushes that Bubba gave him. He crossed the 90s OG, the original OG, with the pre-98 Bubba, which he then also crossed with Kim.
Now, with that, how did Josh D then? What timeline is Josh D in Florida, and how does Josh D and Matt Bubba and Alec and all these crews meet? What's the origin of this?
He got brought down. A couple months after the accidental pollination, when they had finally found their keeper. And the reason why he got brought down was because the gentleman that Bubba was friends with down in Florida, the one that was calling the Superknot Kushberries, he was a mutual friend of Bubba and Josh D. And they already knew that California had a much bigger market, And also, they knew that California was where the money was at. That's where all the celebrities are at. That's where Hollywood's at. That's your wealth and fame. You know what I mean? So they knew that this strain, it was beyond anything that they had ever seen before. And so they called Josh D down there to show it to him and to ask him to take it back to California to popularize it, basically, to make it known.
And why Josh D? Did he know people in California?
Yeah, he knew pretty much everybody. Mainly more than anything, man, his people were connected to the Cypress Hill crew. Which,
Yeah.
which Be Real was the one that actually named it OG.
Got it. So that's how it gets famous now. What everybody believes the original OG is. That's the lineage of it, the accidental crossing of it, and it sounds like Matt met up with Josh D and brought Josh D out, or Josh D happened to be in Florida with Matt at the same time. How does that work out? Because I want to talk a little bit about the grandpa OG that we got as well.
The thing was, one important thing to note was that Josh D did not get an actual cut of the OG to work with until years later, when Bubba went out to California. When Josh D originally went down to Florida, he was given flour to bring back to California. And it was pretty much to get the name out there and get it known. And then this is one of those things that's never spoken about for obvious fucking reasons, but essentially it was a connection to get it from point A to point B. But he wasn't given a cut to work with until Bubba himself moved out to California and personally said, "Here, man, pretty much, you've been loyal, you've been a good friend, you made us a lot of money, you brought us a lot of fame. Well, and you've been around in the industry long enough, and now you want to get into breeding. Let me give you these 2 cuts and let me see what you can do."
Wow. So now let's talk about the grandpa OG that I have. So here's what I know from the story, and I don't know the timeline, so I want you to help me with the timelines on what, based on the story that I have, where it possibly could have been interjected to. So the grandpa OG, there was a guy at this time. Josh D was in Florida, and he had a couch friend named Dan, who we all know as Grandpa. Now, Bubba came over, and apparently Bubba didn't like Dan, and they just didn't have good conversations or whatever. But he had smoked some stuff that Bubba had brought over, and Matt Burger, and I call him Bubba just for short. So he had come over, and he had been begging Josh D and Matt to give him some seeds of this stuff because it was the best stuff that he had smoked that they had. Now, at that point, I don't know what strain it was, because he said Matt had just gotten seeds from Amsterdam, which sounds like he got it from the guy before. Who was the guy that was TK? So sounds like he got it from TK. Then from there, Bubba got his hands on some seeds, and then from there he was sharing some seeds with Josh, and then maybe smoked out a plant and gave Josh some of the seeds of that. And then he was told at this point, Josh D, I believe, was told not to give these seeds out. But Dan was so persistent in begging him, he was just that couch friend that was like, come on, bro, come on, bro, come on, bro, come on, man, come on. And then finally he was like, fuck, I'm tired of hearing this shit, to be honest with you. I just got to give him some seeds to shut him up. So he ended up giving him some seeds, and the seeds came from Matt, which probably came from TK when he came back from Amsterdam, gave them to Matt. Then Matt created something with that. I don't know what he might have created at that time with it, but he had smoked out everybody, and then again was giving Josh D a handful of those seeds of the stuff that they had smoked. And then at that time, that's where the transaction, the grandpa OG was given to Josh D. Josh D then gave it to Dan to shut him up, and Dan is grandpa. right? Everybody down here in California now knows him as Grandpa. These guys are all older guys now, and unfortunately, Grandpa passed away. And in that, he had a safe that had some seeds in it, and this was his go-to. He basically called it OG, and and at that point, what I found in here was some really indica dominant stuff and some real sativa stuff. This is what I found in the F2 version of it. And the indica was so fucking gorgeous. It was like an emerald looking leaf, and it was epic on the indica version. On the sativa, it was just this beautiful sativa, like fucking, you couldn't even believe it was a sativa that stacks like that and had these long pistils and hairs, and it was just amazing. So, and it all, in both of them, smelled very similar. They had this funk OG-ish smell to it. It didn't have that lemony hit to it, but then later on, my friend comes over and says it smells like a little bit of a lemony hit to it. So I'm like, oh shit, maybe I just didn't smell that to it. Maybe my nose wasn't keen to the lemon on it, but I was more looking at the funk of it. And so now I want you to help our audience understand the timeline that it must have been in, and where all this was potentially at what year, because I said it was 15 years old to 20 years old. It may have actually been 10 years before that, to be honest with you. Grandpa has already died. We don't know the exact timing of everything. This is the stories that we're getting from the kids of Grandpa, who handed it down because they weren't able to grow it and they didn't want this to just die. So they handed it down to the next family member who couldn't grow it. Then the next family member who couldn't grow it finally got given to a friend of mine who said, I'll grow it. And, on a drunk night, he wasn't supposed to give it out. It was straight out not supposed to be given out. As soon as it was given out, my friend got in a huge fight because they literally, this family member cussed the shit out of my friend, and then my friend had to get him in a headlock to calm his ass down, because he said, bro, you're not supposed to have those. You're not supposed to have those. You're not supposed to have those, kind of thing. And give them back, man. It was too late because they had already been given to me, and I had already been breeding with them at that time. So it was really too late for them to come back to him. And at that point, he finally made peace with it and said, okay, they're out. But I want to know the timeline. Was it 1980? Could it have been, the 90s? Was it 2000, the 2000s? I think this comes in.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're gonna have to do some fill in the blanks. With this OG history, you're gonna have to do some fill in the blanks, especially with the 92 OG, because, I mean, dude, just being real, a lot of these dudes are old, and there's shit that they don't even remember, even the ones that are still alive. Like, hell, I witnessed it for myself, not trying to give anybody a shout out or anything, but if you listen to the whole, I think they went on for like 56 episodes on the Adam Dunn show, the definitive history of OG Kush. They brought Matt Berger on there. They brought Jash D on there. They brought Alec Anderson on there. And they were coming back. They were coming back because they were like, oh, dude, after that last episode, I went home, dude, and I started connecting the dots, and then I remembered this. And they admitted out of their own mouth, there's shit that I still can't remember, because it's fucking, you're talking back in the 80s, dude, and these dudes smoke weed all day, every fucking day. They're not going to remember every finite detail. So we have to do some filling in the blanks. So that being said, from the information that you stated and that you told me, and the information that I know and all the research that I've done, this is my best educated guess. This is my best educated guess, and I believe it to be true. Like I said, Origins TK had already brought back the genetics from Amsterdam. Initially, the plan was for him to work on enhancing and creating a better version of the Emerald Triangle. That's what they wanted to do. They got wind of Bubba and Alec Anderson because they had created Bubba Kush. Bubba Kush had already been created. They were then pulled into the mix to say, okay, let's work together. You've got something fucking special. We're working on something special. You guys are up here, you know, whatever you want to say at that time. I don't know what they were doing, but let's just say, just to make it make sense, you guys are working out of a fucking tent or a single bedroom. We've got multiple grow houses, and we've got this big fucking kingpin dude behind us throwing tens of thousands of dollars. He's got an endless resource. We brought in a pro grower from fucking California. Let's work together and make something magic. So that is where Bubba entered the picture. But here's the thing that you have to understand. After that accidental pollination, and they found their keeper, everything in that room had been pollinated. They found their keeper, yes, but nobody's ever said that they got rid of the others or that they didn't use the others. And every plant in that room had been pollinated, because coincidentally, right around that same time, TK came out with Triangle, and he just called it Triangle, which then became Triangle Kush, which was an improved version of Triangle. And also right around that same time, the White sprouted up. So you had 3 legendary strains come up in the same area from the same circle of people immediately following that accidental pollination. So I believe what you have as the Grandpa OG was seeds from one of those other plants, likely from one of the emerald triangles that had gotten pollinated. And the reason why I say that is because your Grandpa OG does something that I've never seen any other OG do. It can literally swing both ways. There is a sativa variant in there.
Interesting.
Which would mean that not only is your OG one of the older OGs, but it also likely has one of the oldest chem lineages that anybody's seen in it, and one of the most authentic chem lineages. And anybody who knows real chem, anybody who doesn't say this is, I'm sorry, I'm going to call bullshit. If you claim to know chem and you don't say this or don't agree with this statement, chem is not always gas and fuel. Not always. Chem can go 2 ways. It can go gas and it can go straight wood. It has a hardcore, woody, piney scent to it.
That's what my.
What's that?
And
I go stuff like that. Real woody.
yep. In fact, the woody Kush that a lot of people know, the woody part of it was chem times Afghani. That's woody. It's chem times Afghani.
And the real small ones I grew was from rare dankness. They got real, and they flared. It's like they flared fast, but they didn't get real big. They just, and they stayed small, but they make good little plants. They just didn't, like I said, they didn't do what I wanted them to do. I don't like to grow it. I don't like to grow skunk or kush, to be honest with you.
Yep. And let me ask you a question, JR. So, because I know you've smoked it. You smoked your Grandpa OG, right?
Yeah, and it's got a gas funk to it. Like
Right. No. How would you rate it on the potency level? Scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, dude, it's got to be an 8, 9-ish kind of feel to it. And also there's another grower out there that also received the original seeds. Another friend of the guy who gave them to me, and he's also seeing this. It's very rare to see the sativa version. He's getting a lot more of the indica versions, but he's saying it's all gas and very potent.
So, and that's what I'm saying. That's what leads me to believe that I know for a fact that your seeds came from a plant that was in that room. That much I know.
Well,
But like I said,
I'm glad you said that, because I got a whole pack of them son of a bitches.
There were 3 varietals that came out of that room. One became famous, but really all 3 became famous. The 92 OG, the Triangle Kush, and the White, right? But keep in mind, there were 3 varietals in that room. There was Emerald Triangle, there was Bubba Kush, and then there was straight Super Knot. All 3 got hit with we're talking late 80s Hindu Kush. They all got hit. Pollen's flying fucking everywhere. Every plant's impregnated. Not only do you have 3 varietals, but how many possible phenos do you have in there?
About 1,000.
Right. You know, it was confirmed it was at least 150 plants.
Damn. Well, you had more than 1,000 then. Damn.
Right. So your cut, in my opinion, is likely the Emerald Triangle hit with the Hindu Kush pollen, which would have made it, in my opinion, my educated guess, an original 80s dog bud, the mother of all Kim, crossed with an original 80s Hindu Kush. And it's a special pheno of that somebody isolated.
I heard Archive talk about that dog bud. Like he said the original Kim dog bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard him say that on a podcast with Matt Wright.
That's very cool, bro. I love that you are able to help me kind of figure out what this might have actually really been. So we won't even call it the original. It's not really probably preceding the original OG. It might have actually been created at the exact same time.
Yeah, it's pre-OG, and you have to call it pre-OG because at that time they hadn't even named it OG. It didn't get named OG until they took it out to fucking California. And like I said, Be Real, and he just recently said this too. It's on the IG page. He said, "I'm the one that named OG, me." And nobody questioned him about it. The whole Cypress Hill crew was like, "Yup." He's like, I'm sick of this. Is it OG as the original gangster? Is it OG for ocean grown? He's like, it's fucking neither. He's like, I called it that because, and this is why you hear me say at the very beginning of the conversation, which OG are we talking about? Because there's different histories. There were other OGs going around at that same time. And
Yep.
he was like, no, we call this OG because this is the original. If it's not this, it's bullshit. This is the original.
Like the OG gangster.
Right.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, now we know a little bit more about the Josh D or Matt Bubba lineage timelines, and this is all happening in the 90s. And what year do you think this accidental crossing happened, where a lot of these strains were in that room that this Grandpa OG, most likely
1989 to 1990.
So that's these seeds, guys. Okay, so that's the Grandpa OG history per se. And again, we're just filling in a couple dots here. There's no absolute 100% because unfortunately Grandpa passed away already. And I already tried to reach out to Matt, Bubba, and Josh D, and nobody returned my information. So, so with that said, this is where we believe they originated from, and the lineage and the history of it and the timelines and all that stuff. Now, is there another OG? Are there other OG histories that we need to know about that are important?
Yes, the biker Kush, because the biker Kush predates everything, and that's the most mysterious one. That's why I get offended when people say. And honestly, I don't agree with Josh D for having called his shit Hell's Angels OGs. And I'll give him this, he's got a big fucking set of balls on him.
Yeah, they wouldn't know that now the Supernaut that we smoked, that it wasn't brought up by the Hell. It brought up by a biker crew, but it wasn't the Hell's Angels that brought it in here. I never met a Hell's Angels in my life. It was brought up by a different crew, wasn't as big as them. They was a small time crew out of a certain part of our area, Kentucky, and they was bringing that Supernaut up too. It was not Hell's Angels, but it was a biker crew.
Here's the thing though, man. There's two root sources that you can tie down 90% of your legendary strains in the northern continent, North America. There's two sources that you can tie 90% of those strains from, and they go fucking hand in hand, man. Ask your fucking grandparents, dude. It's the Grateful Dead and the fucking bikers. And the reason why they go hand in hand is because the fucking bikers were the ones working security for the Grateful fucking Dead show.
All of them come from. That's where all the great stories come from. A Grateful Dead show.
Right, and the bikers were working security, and the bikers already had the transportation on lock. They had already mastered the what back then was called mule. They had mastered it. They were the perfect source to get that shit from one state to the next and take it nationwide. So the bikers were the first ones with their hands on the Kush. Now the
That's why
Kush,
Kentucky had it so much because it was that
right,
pipeline.
yeah, well, because a lot of them took it home with them,
Yep, right through Kentucky.
and Kentucky was home to a lot of bikers.
Sure was. It was in that pipe, like I said, that right from Florida, straight up the pipeline. Here it comes.
But yeah, but the Kush back at that time, the biker Kush would have been like straight fucking land race, dude. It would have been a land race Kush. It would have more than likely been an Afghan or a Paki, more than likely an Afghan because Paki cat hadn't quite hit the scene at that time. Because when you're talking biker Kush, you're talking 60s and 70s, brother. 60s and 70s, way before the 92 OG. So it would have been like an Afghan or a Paki, likely an Afghan, hit with a land race tie. And that would have been the beginning of it. It would have just been an Afghan Kush indica crossed with a Thai sativa. And then as the years go on into the early 80s and they got their hands on the dog bud, they too crossed it with the dog bud. And the biker Kush that most people are looking for, the true Hell's Angel Kush, is Kush, i.e. Afghan or Paki, times landrace Thai times dog bud.
So that's awesome. So that's the technical, real, original OG Kush.
Yeah.
Then we have the OG, most famous OG, which was then the Josh D OG or the Bubba Kush Matt D OG that got popularized by Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there any other OGs that we all need to know about that's also part of this?
Well, that's the triangle and the white. Like I said, I firmly believe that those both came out of the same room. I know for a fact that the triangle Kush came out of that same room. But there's strong history to support that the gentleman who brought about the white was given a cut from TK Origins, which would have tied it to that room. And we know it came out of the same area in the same time frame. So further supporting that it came out of that room. And I mean, those are like all your biggest legends right there. Triangle Kush, the White, Bubba Kush, and Josh DOG and the 92 OG. All of that ties back to that. But then outside of that, too, you've got the Ghost OG, which the Ghost OG, it originates from the Josh DOG. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, it originates from that same timeline of the Josh DOG creation. You've got the Banana OG. You've got the Goji OG, you've got the Emerald OG, and you've got the Tahoe, the SFV, and the LA Confidential, which the LA Confidential came from the LA Act.
What flavor tones did the Josh D OG portray?
Pine and gas.
Did it have any lemon in it?
It could, depending on the fennel that you got, but when it was there, it was very, very subtle, and it was a sour lemon. It wasn't a fruity lemon. It was a sour lemon. It was a chemically lemon.
So it was mostly pine gas, and that's and really no sweet.
No, there was no sweet. The lemon tone that was there when it was present, depending on the fennel that you got, like I said, it wasn't a fruity sweet lemon. It was a sour, fucking almost chemically lemon, like lemon pine sol type lemon.
Got it. Okay, cool. So now we talked about all the histories of all the, I mean, not all the OGs, but the most important ones, the first ones.
Yeah, because all the other OGs are just random fucking creations that somebody crossed. They either crossed one of those original OGs with something else, or they just basically grab bagged some shit and threw some shit together. Those are the ones with real respectable history to them.
Okay, perfect. So now we've guys as a community, we just basically had the Skunk Wars talk. we kind of went through that. There's going to be, I'm sure, other skunks out there that are available that will probably come about during the Skunk Con coming the end of the year. We talked about, all the weird attitudes around this particular varietal. We talked about the people that were involved in my skunk hunt. We talked about what I found and what I'm doing next with what I found. And then and again, then we went into an OG history for you, and we uncovered the real timelines of all the interactions potentially. There are some fill in the gap stuff here for some of this, but most everything that you heard is pretty damn dead on, straight, flat, pretty, there's no real variant from it, but again, remembering that people's memories are involved here when they tell stories. If I told one person that the train was black and purple and green with polka dots, and then I told that to a buddy of mine, by the time it's a green train with purple stripes, and then before you know it, it got back to me, it would be a whole different story. So sometimes you have to put a little bit of into it versus, and you're going to get most of the history, I'm sure, coming from 5 different sources or different people that came together to create all this stuff. And so and now as we come into the picture, we have some historians, some people who have done data research, who have really, who really cared about giving this story to you guys as best as we could interpret it. And thank you, Mr. Happy. Thank you, Kay, for that, for the skunk history, for the OG history, and also thank you guys just for spending the time with us today. Is there anything else that we want to go over? And also thank you for all the props on the white rhino. And is there anything else that we want to go over today before we end?
The one thing that I do want to point out, and if anybody re-listens to this episode, if you didn't catch it the first time, you should really pay attention to this. Okay. Me and Kay only met each other, not even a month ago, Kay? Like maybe 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah, right. We've not had that many conversations because you're a busy man and I work all the fucking time. Like we've only had a handful of conversations, and we've never really went in depth on the OG because you've got the skunk, and skunk's the craze right now. So the conversations that we've had outside of just general growing knowledge have been primarily centered around the skunk. JR, yeah, we're good buddies and we've had a lot of good conversations, but we've only really gotten into the history of the Grandpa OG, maybe once or twice. Okay, but if you go back and you listen to this episode, I want y'all to notice something. As I was going through that history of the Florida, things started connecting, because you said that Bubba gave those seeds to dude, and he said that they were seeds that had come from Amsterdam. What did I say about Origins TK and the seeds brought back from Amsterdam? When I brought up the Kryptonite crew, Kay instantly was like, yeah, I heard about the Kryptonite crew, and I had some buddies who were connected to the Kryptonite crew, and they know about the Superknot, and the Superknot came up from Florida. Like, dots started getting connected. So people can either disagree with this because that's not what they remember, that's not what they believe, or they could disagree with it because maybe there are certain things that they don't want known. Y'all realize that's a possibility, that these are certain things that people don't want known, but
Exactly
look
right.
at the way the dots connected, and then make your own determination of what you believe to be the truth.
Well, that's amazing. And with that, guys, any last words, Kay? Do you want to say anything?
And experience sees experience. I say it every time. You ain't gotta. You can't lie to people that's been there and done that. You can talk your way in, but you show your work, and experience it sees it. So that's all I gotta say.
Well, thank you, brother, for the respect. Honestly, you've been nothing but a champion and nothing but an incredible person for the community as well, giving out what I believe is the real skunk stuff, and the lineages and the history behind it, and and being able to even know that the guy you know, the seeds that we got there, the guy came from a guy named Blue, who was, I mean, that was just some really cool stuff. And honestly, I'm really excited to be able to bring a lot of this stuff that you guys trusted me. And honestly, that's not even just to talk about what Mr. Happy has brought to the table.
Oh.
We haven't
Yeah,
even talked
yeah.
about that. That'll come into the next episode, guys. But the whole next season of what I'm going to be growing is stuff from 1954. The
Okay, can I tell them, JR? Can I tell them what we're going to call it?
1,000%. Please do.
Okay. So we decided we're going to call it the Timeless Classics Collection. The Timeless Classics Collection. The reason being is because I didn't even realize that I had did this until I just sent him some seeds of my Grateful Sherbet. So let's go through the eras. What do we have? We have seeds from 1951, which is as old as any of you fuckers are ever going to see. And you can doubt all you want, but you're going to see it when it starts, when he pops them. So you got 1951. You've got the original Acapulco Gold from 1969, which the seeds are actually from fucking 1969. So you got the 60s. So we're in the 50s to the 60s. Okay.
What?
You've got the landrace Afghani hash plant times early 80s Northern Lights #1 from Neville Sea Bank. Well, Afghani was popular in the 70s. So boom, there's our 70s. And then going into the 80s, you've got the 80s Northern Lights. And then in the end of the 80s into the early 90s, you've got the Black African Magic, right? And then going further into the 90s, we've got the African Magic, and then you've got in the 2000s, you've got the Gorilla Glue, the original Gorilla Glue #4 that's in the silverback line. And then you've also got the Sherbet from the Grateful Sherbet and the Grateful Breath from the Grateful Sherbet. So we've got 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and all legendary strains from every era.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Wow.
that's what's going to be dropped here in water and germinated and started here in the next week or so, and actually probably this week. So being that today's Monday, so
Yeah.
with all that, you know, that's just what's
Wow.
coming next, guys. So the skunks here. We talk about OG. Now we're going
So
into
weird, man.
some crazy history that's going to be coming up of these.
That's so weird, y'all getting ready to pop, because I'm getting ready to pop your gear, Happy's gear, Duke Diamond's gear, AK's gear, all of it. It's getting ready to go in the water. Every bit of it. It's crazy.
It's pretty amazing, guys. This has been a treat to be on this with you guys. Honestly, I'm freaking love with this podcast that we just did. So informative, so cool, so clear, so awesome. I mean, honestly, I think this is one of the best podcasts we've done. So with that said, it should have been, I mean, I'm just so glad it's the first one with old school chronic only and not having Blue Sky with us, that it is, and not that there's anything wrong with Blue Sky. He's an awesome guy. He's on his own mission, and we're just going to leave it at that. You know, but it's nice for me to be able to have this staple as the first real cannabis talk with just old school chronic in it, leading it and owning this, and then having you two guys, both Kay and Mr. Happy on. I mean, my God, it's my honor. It's my pleasure. This is literally made my whole week, my day, my everything. I'm super stoked right now. This is really a pleasure, guys.
It was my pleasure, man. I just want people to know that Kentucky is not all bad. I mean, we like to see our genetics get out there, man. We want to see, and we want to see them. We don't want. I mean, we love it when people work. I love it. My dad loves it when people work with his gear. I'm not a breeder, but he loves it, man. He loves seeing your gear, man. You do great work. You keep it up, Mr. Happy. Well, I'm getting ready to throw his seeds in the water, so and the seeds speak for themselves. Like I said, they're A-grade seeds. Everything that you boys put out is #1. I appreciate it. That's all I got to say.
Well, with that, guys, that's awesome. Thank you for the closure on that and saying those statements. And with that, guys, thank you so much for your time. That's some real cannabis talk coming right at you guys. The Old School Chronic Chronicles. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.